is back in the headlines again tonight. Reports say one person dead, several injured, some have been arrested. It begs the question um, about, and we hear that some of the residents complaining that they seem not to believe that the security arrangement is doing its job. From where you sit, you've been there before. What's your view on what is happening there tonight?
Yes, Evans, it seems to me that government's approach towards dealing with the Boko crisis is very reactive. And so when somebody is shot at, security is beefed up, people are arrested, and then we go to sleep. But we all know that the Boko crisis is one that has to do with contested skin. In other words, you have two ethnic groups, the Kusazis and Mompusis, fighting basically over who has the rightful claim to the Boko skin. This matter has been litigated upon, there have been judicial pronouncements, and yet this has not resolved the conflict. But we all know, Evans, that in times past, roughly, I think in 2009, thereabout, we had what was known as the Boko Interethnic Peace Committee, which was made up of the protagonists, I mean, in the Boko conflict, the Kusasis and the Mampusis, the Regional Security Council, REXEC. Now, this committee was able to foster peace for a very long time in Boko. We did not experience the eruption of the conflict. At some point, the committee itself um, became dysfunctional because one of the major factions to the conflict withdrew at the time. But I recall that in 2010, the overlord of Mokpurugu, the Nayiri himself, actually called for the revival of the Boko Ethnic Peace Committee because he himself appreciated at the time that the Boko Inter-Ethnic Peace Committee was the only credible avenue for resolving the Boko conflict. And so, Evans, I would urge all those who matter to consider the revival of that committee because when it was functional, Boko witnessed some relative calm and peace. And so that could be the starting point. The Peace Council can play a pivotal role because you see, the Boko people themselves are the ones who can find a lasting solution to this particular problem because the matter has been dealt with by the court. Some would say the government has used hard power, I mean, military and police deployments in the area whenever the conflict has erupted. And yet, all these attempts have not been able to resolve the conflict. So let's get back to the peace committee, and I'm sure we'll be able to find some lasting solutions to the conflict in Boko.
I mean, if we've done it in Dagbon, I guess many will say definitely we can do it in Boku. But another key issue that always comes up, and again tonight, with this person now we're hearing was on the horse, dismounted to try and get the horse to drink water and has been shot. Immediately he was shot, it triggers a chain of violence. There's clearly a problem with guns in Boku. A lot of people seem to have it and they're ready to use it. You've been there, the Interior Ministry before. I mean, how are these guns getting into Boku, and why hasn't there been a concerted effort to try and flash Boku of these guns? I bet many of them unlicensed in the hands of people. Isn't that an approach worth considering?
Well, Evans, it is. And I remember vividly how my boss, when we were in office, the Honorable Makoyongo extended some amnesty to the people in Boko to um, surrender their weapons and in return for some amnesty. because the law is very clear. If you are found in possession of a firearm without authority or authorization, you commit a second degree felony. But my boss was prepared to grant some amnesty, but even the amnesty did not yield any serious dividend. And so the problem continued to stare at us in the face. Now, Evans, Bawku is a border town. It borders Burkina Faso and Togo at the same time. And so that makes it easy for weapons to be smuggled into Bawku. Now, what makes it attractive for people to want to own weapons in Bawku is the conflict. And so, without conflict, I'm not sure people would want to spend all their savings to purchase a firearm. So, one of the ways to deal with weapon proliferation in Bawku is to try to resolve the conflict from the bottom, from the root. What are the root causes? If we're able to resolve that, I'm sure nobody would have the appetite to want to procure firearms in the first place.
And as far as the Defense and Interior Committee is concerned, um, you want to attempt to lend support to the initiative that we recently had. Interior Minister, I think, came to Parliament and assured that some work is happening to try and get the factions to sit around, mediated by the Peace Council, to have a resolution. You've talked about the revival of the inter-ethnic conflict committee there. Is there a role for the Defense and Interior Committee in this?
Well, the role the committee can play is to insist that the government should ensure that the Peace Council is well resourced to carry out the task the Minister for the Interior wants it to play. The Peace Council, Evans, and this is not a secret, is one of the most underfunded agencies under the Ministry of the Interior. And the Minister for the Interior is aware about this problem himself. And so, if he now wants the Peace Council to play the role that he wants it to play in resolving the Bawku conflict, we would, as a committee, insist that government should allocate funds, maybe outside the budget of the Peace Council, because we sat and approved of the budget of the Peace Council, and even their budget is nothing to write home about.